Up next, the WHL Show with Gabriel Neumann.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the WHL Show. My name is Gabe Neumann, and today I have two awesome people with me to talk about just the WHL and the specifically the Winterhawks and the Kelowna Rockets. Basically, just be chatting for a bit and diving into the season so far for each of them, going about 1 month into the season. And so I want to go ahead and welcome on Bryan and Matt. Hello, guys. Let's go ahead and get that. There we go. Awesome. Alrighty, so Bryan, if you can go ahead and first just start us off, go ahead and tell us about how the Winterhawks are doing.
Well, it's smooth sailing so far. 10 games in, 8-1-1, not too shabby at all. Getting points out of in 9 of your first 10 games. There's been a lot of the Gabe Klassen by far paving the way in scoring. For the first 5 games, he was red hot, sort of slowed down, but got the Winterhawks back on. Got the Winterhawks either tied it or gave them the lead, or no, they gave them the lead last night at the Glass Palace against the Rockets for that ninth game of a point out of those 10 games.
Right.
Someone figured out with the all the overages from last year leaving. Gauthier, Hanus, Kozak's probably not coming back. Hannes isn't coming back.
Right.
Now, some might have thought there was going to be a bit of a power shortage in Portland. Not so much.
Absolutely, yeah. We had some the Winterhawks definitely had some big names on their team last year, especially like we were saying, like Hannes and Hannes and Kozak playing with the Sabres or I think it's the Sabres, right?
Rochester
Sabres?
Americans.
Yeah, cool. So so some big
you
names.
Never expect a team like that to lose what? They lost 4 or 5 guys pro and came back and they're top team in the league.
Yeah.
So, you never expect that turnover and then to come out like they came out. It's going to be a tough team to beat.
Exactly.
No, definitely not. And I think they –
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say it's super awesome seeing Gabe Klassen step up. Not that he hasn't been incredible already. He was really great last year, but also just seeing him and how well he's doing this year and being named captain and everything. That's really awesome to see for sure.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Gabe Klassen being named captain, absolutely, and rightfully so, with his basically earning his stripes in his first 5 games that they play without 5 or 6 games they play without a captain.
Yeah.
Just paving the way on offense, stepping up in his overage year to be a mentor to the guys like Carter Silveran, Alex Thompson, Ravndal, all these rookies who have just came into the team and filled in the holes that the overagers left. Like Carter Silveran, 15 years old, already looking formidable. When you're 15 years old and you've barely even played 10 games in the WHL and you're already on the central scouting list, that's pretty impressive.
That's incredible for sure. And then looking at because right now Gabe Klassen is 5th in the WHL for shorthanded goals, and then also 5th for first goals of the games. Kyle Jazowski's 2nd for insurance goals in the league right now. And then I think and then Dante Januzzi is 4th in the league for shutouts, or technically tied for 2nd with 1 shutout so far, with Rhett Stusser of the Red Deer Rebels being in 1st. But yeah, it's definitely, they've had an awesome season, awesome start of the season so far. I'm definitely excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, no doubt. They've also shown a lot of tenacity. Even the games that they did lose, like Friday night, they still showed a lot of tenacity to at least force the game into an extra frame and then the shootouts.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think that being there and watching the games, what do you think that they could work on specifically? What's the one thing that they could
the one thing I did talk to Coach Mike Johnson about this. They seem to get themselves into penalty trouble a lot, and really just kind of cleaning up that play, because they're good at even strength. I mean, they're good on the penalty kill, good at even strength, 5-on-5. decent pretty good on the power play too.
Yeah.
But Jay, they just really put themselves at a disadvantage by taking so many penalties. If they can get that cleaned up, they'll be in a really good spot.
Absolutely. And then also, Matt, we're just going to kind of like transition. So as a Winterhawks fan, obviously I know a bit more about the Winterhawks than the Rockets. So go ahead and educate us on how the Rockets are doing.
Well, first and foremost, I live in Portland. So
gotcha.
The Winterhawks, they've been a problem my whole life. But the Rockets so far this year, 4-7-1 to start the season. Rocky start on paper, but when you break down each one of their games, they've played Everett, Seattle, Portland, and Winnipeg. And they've kept each one of those games at 1-goal tallies, besides last night, but it was an empty net goal to make it 5-3 Portland. So Kelowna's kept themselves in with the best teams. The record might not show it, but they're a 40-plus win team from last season, and they're very young. They only lost the 3 guys they lost to being 20-year-olds last season. So they're turning over. They have a lot of 16-year-olds or a lot of 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, one 16-year-old on the team. But they're in the process, like head coach Chris Millette said last week, they're in the process of learning how to win as a younger group. No playoff experience for anybody coming into the playoffs last year, and coming up, to start the year with some pretty tough teams. You start off with, Portland opening night. Then you play Seattle the next week, and then Everett the week after that. And those are 3 teams that are, right up there in the Western Hockey League and the Canadian Hockey League. It's top 10 or 15 teams in Major Junior.
Absolutely. And honestly, I really enjoy those games where on paper, like just looking at like the records, they may not be the best numbers looking on paper, but you have to actually look at the game specifically to see what's going on and
Absolutely.
See the good games. I like looking at players who may not, like, their numbers may not be the best, but that they're good players. So things like that. I really do enjoy that. That's awesome. Who on the team are you really looking forward to watch this year specifically?
Well, Andrew Crystal's been fun to watch through the first, we're at 12 games now. Him and Gabriel Stutz for Kelowna have been their top 2 point getters this season. Stutz last year was draft eligible, went undrafted, played for the Czech national team at the World Juniors, but he's really came on the past, to start this season. Him and Crystal have been right up there. But watching Andrew Crystal play, it's kind of incredible the way he slows the game down. Very skillful player. Played really well Friday night. I was at that game, and he has a really good job of kind of quarterbacking the offense and slowing everything down. So he'll be interesting to watch coming into his draft year. And Gabriel Stutz, a little more comfortable in Kelowna now than last year, between, coming in during the pandemic and first-year guy from Europe. Now I think with Pavel Novak moved on, he's kind of our only import player, and he's a little bit more comfortable, in Kelowna, playing for the Rockets. A lot more team chemistry there, and he's been fun to watch to start this season.
Absolutely. And he's looking at it now. He's number 4 in the WHL right now for points with 20. Bedard being number 1 with 27. So he's not that far behind. And that's really good. That's impressive. They have some strong players, and that's fun to see. Would you describe them as more of an offensive team, or as like a defensive team?
I think they're really anywhere in between. They need help defensively. Sure. These last 2 games in Portland, they were short 2D after Elias Carmichael didn't travel with the team, and Noah Dory had a slew foot 5 minutes into the game, and that suspended him for last night's outing. So defensively, they have some troubles. The last 2 games in Portland, they let in 38 and 48 shots. Opening the year against Portland, Seattle, Everett, all 3 of those teams had 35 plus shots. So they need defensive help. I think they have good defensemen, but I think really if you're looking at the Rockets, they're a little bit more offense oriented with guys like Crystal, Stutz, Colton Dock, who has only played 2 games this year. Back-to-back concussions for him, so haven't seen him in the Rocket lineup as much as I would have liked to through the first 12 games. But I think really they're more an offensive-oriented team, but I think, with good defensive help, they're anywhere in between. Like last year when we had Tyson Feist and Jake Lee, they were huge contributors defensively. So really they're a good two-way team when they have the right supporting cast. I think right now we're still missing one or two good defensemen to push us over that hump. But really, anywhere in between offense and defense is where the Rockets were last year, and I expect them to be if they acquire a defenseman at some point this season.
Yeah. So now we're just gonna kind of like branch out and just like the whole WHL. Right now for points, we have like for players specifically, Bedard's in first with 27, Austin Roos, and then
Shocker.
Sorry?
Shocker.
Yeah, legit. And then Austin Roos for the Silvertips and Cohen Zimmer from the Prince George Cougars are tied second with 21. Andrew Cristall with the Rockets at 20, and Logan Stankoven, another shocker, at 19 points total. Those are some big names, and especially Cohen Zimmer with the Prince George Cougars. Seeing him play and seeing him building his just like performing on the ice, it's just really cool to watch. Austin Roos with the Silvertips has also been incredible. He deserves more attention that I've seen him get. I don't see a lot of people talking about him specifically. So I think last night's game against the Pats, he was incredible, and not a lot of people are really talking about him, which I think is kind of sad because he's right behind Bedard there in both points and goals.
Not a lot of people are talking about the Prince George Cougars. That was a gutsy win last night. First team to beat Seattle this season, and they have a couple of young stars, and Cohen Zimmer being one of them, that are going to be high NHL picks this year. And they're a team that really a lot of people have slept on because they're not in that market. Prince George is kind of they've been struggling with attendance the past 10 years. So I think Prince George is a very formidable team, and I think this season they could make a lot of noise in the BC division.
I agree too, because they've won 6 and lost 6 of the 12 games played so far, and so that's another thing where it's like looking at the numbers doesn't really tell the whole story. There was a game against Everett about a month back where they were just bloodthirsty, but I think they lost like 5-2 or something like that. But the game itself was just like very fighty, and they kept trying to draw penalties and rile Everett up. They're very good at they're just very good at getting into the other team's head, I think. And like you said, they're very underrated, and I think that more people should definitely pay attention to them, especially like with Ty Brennan and Ty Young and Cohen Zimmer, things like that, or players like those. They have potential to go far this season, I think.
Yeah, they lost 39 games last year, and when you have stars like Riley Height, Cohen Zimmer, and two very, very good goalies, they're a team that wants to win, and I think this season they're definitely going to make the playoffs, and I think they're going to be a team that a lot of people aren't looking at, but I think they're going to be good for years to come.
I think so too. And also, of course, with the draft, the NHL, the 2023 NHL draft coming up with Bedard being projected as going number 1. Looking at the draft eligible players this season, Bryan, if you could tell me about those for the Winterhawks, that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Luca Cagnoni, as I mentioned, Carter Sovran, Janis Spunar, I believe that's pronunciation. Well, all in the NHL Central Scouting list as a C. Spunar and Sovran as C graded, which means they could be going anywhere from the 4th round to the 7th round. Yeah. And as I mentioned, the fact that Sovran's already cracked that list at 15 is impressive. Spunar as well, despite playing just, I believe, only 2 games to this point.
Yeah, I think
free games. Cool. 3 games to this point. And he's already made the list. So that's certainly pretty impressive. But Cagnoni being on that list, not surprising in the slightest. After Really's promising season last year, came to this year, and he just has been on fire. He's just been on fire. Yeah, scoring, just dominating the preseason, kind of just carrying that momentum, scoring in overtime against Kelowna in the 2nd game of the season, or the 1st, I believe.
Yeah,
that would have been 2 for Portland, 1 for Kelowna.
Being named by Scott Wheeler in his top 90 prospects list. This guy's living for Cagnoni. I think he's going to go, and I think we can see him go anywhere from the 4th round at the very least to the 2nd round.
Yeah, Luca Cagnoni is definitely a player to watch. He is fun to watch on the ice, and he's definitely very smart, and he's definitely incredible. Especially just like watching him last season and his start this season has been really good. Matt, what about the Kelowna Rockets? What about their draft eligibles this year?
Well, this year they have two big draft eligibles. Andrew Crystal being one of them. He could go. I've seen him go in the second or third round. I've seen him go in the first round in mock drafts. TSN has him ranked 22. The Hockey News has him at 22. Sportsnet has him at 25. So he's really anywhere in that top 30 or 40 players. I mean, 17 turns 18 in February. So far, he's on pace for 113 points in 68 games. So he is going to be a high-quality player. Eligible for this year's draft. Also, Caden Price back there on defense. Same age group as Crystal. He is also a B-rated prospect on NHL Central Scouting, along with Crystal. They're both B-rated prospects. But look for him to go anywhere between 2 and 3, second or third round this year. Could sneak into the first round like a guy like Reed Schaefer did last year for Seattle. A lot of people had him going later in the draft, but he snuck in there in the second round, or first round to Edmonton. So you really don't know. The Rockets definitely. Andrew Crystal's a player to watch. He could be a first-round pick, and then also Caden Price. So the Rockets have a couple good draft eligibles this year. Both of them won gold at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup in August, and both are off to good starts this season.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a really especially with like the 113 you said projected goals and
113 projected points, 51 goals and 62 assists.
I meant points. I don't know why I said goals, but yeah. And also looking at the Eastern Division with it is Eastern. The Moose Jaw Warriors with Braden Yeager, who got Rookie of the Year last season. I'm pretty sure he was the CHL Rookie of the Year as well as the WHL one. So he's incredible. He's number 2 for power play assists right now. Or tied for number 1 with Owen Pickering from the Swift Current Broncos. And Moose Jaw for sure also has a bunch of notable names as well going into this draft. And so definitely paying attention to Eastern teams as well has been something that's been pretty exciting. The rankings so far, hold on, so sorry. Now we're going to just kind of look at the goalies because goalies are always my favorite. Number 1 right now is Rhett Stoser, I think is how you say it. If I'm butchering that, I will apologize. But he has a 1.62 goals against average right now, and in 5 games played, which is awesome. And looking down for Connor Unger from Moose Jaw has been incredible. He came in this year and is playing with Jackson Unger. Ironically, they have the same last name except Connor's is spelled with an A. But he has been doing awesome. He had a 2.12 goals against average in 9 games played, and playing Scott Ratzlaff, Tyler Brennan, Carson Bjarnason, Brett Meerwald is another one from Vancouver, and Thomas Milich. Bunch of really good goalies in the WHL that I think should not be overlooked coming up just in general, not even just the NHL draft, because obviously some of those guys were either drafted already or aren't eligible this season. But what about Bryan, tell me a bit about the Portland goalies.
Well, you've got Dante Giannuzzi coming in his overage year, relegated to the understudy at the second half of last year after the Winterhawks brought in Taylor Gauthier. But he has once again regained his leading role, and he's been doing a fine job so far. I believe where he's been doing an all right job. GA and save percentage not exactly where he wanted, 3.45 and 0.871, but he has been playing. He's generally been playing well despite those numbers. Absolutely. So I wouldn't be too fooled by that. Jans Brunel, on the other hand, as I mentioned, draft eligible this year. He is in his short time so far with the Winterhawks. He's certainly made an impression going 2-0-0 in the 2 games he started. save percentage of 908, GAA of 2.10. I certainly think there's a chance you'll definitely see more of him going forward. That is if the Winterhawks don't decide to go out and get some more goaltending help
Right.
at the deadline, which is probably not what they need, but you never really know. So
yeah, and like especially with like Dante's numbers, for instance, like looking at those games, sometimes it's not necessarily even like the goaltender's fault. It's he needs more defensive help in front of the net, things like that. I really like watching those games because it's like a love-hate relationship, because for me it's like just being able to analyze that, hey, that like sure, there's this really good goaltender seeing a lot of shots that he shouldn't be seeing, things like that. And especially, Jan Spooner coming in this season, he's been doing really good. I've definitely gotten a good first impression from him. And then I know that they had another prospect playing with them through the preseason with Luke Brunin. He was also doing really good. He's with the Warman Wildcats right now in the U18 AAA. And so he's another prospect to look out for once he hits the WHL for full time or for when he actually joins. But I think that he's definitely another Winterhawk goaltender to keep an eye out for when he joins the roster. Matt, what about the Rockets goalies? Tell me a bit about them.
We got Talon Boyko, who was just recently returned from the New York Rangers after getting signed in late September, early October. He's played 3 games for Kelowna this year, faced 108 shots and made 97 saves. He's a bigger goalie. He's, I believe, 6'9.5". So bigger goalie, makes a lot of high quality saves. The only really thing for him to work on is a little bit of consistency. Friday night had some miraculous saves and then let a couple slip 5-hole that were, but he, NHL draft pick. He's entering his overage season. Acquired last year from the Tri-City Americans. Played well for us last season. And then we also have Jari Kikkonen. Kikkonen entering his first full season in Kelowna. Last year, we sent Colby Knight down to AAA and brought Jari Kikkonen onto the Rocket roster. He's from Lloydminster, Alberta. He's played 8 games for Kelowna this season, made 252 saves on 224 shots. He had a really nice game last night, made 43 saves on 48 shots. Same with Talon Boyko. There's been, a heavy amount of shots that these goalies have faced early in the season, and they've fared fairly well through it. Obviously, like you were saying, defensive help is needed. You can't look at these goalies and really make fair judgments when they're facing 40, 45 shots a game, because eventually you're going to let a bad one slide. But yeah, the Rockets, they're fairly stable at goalie. Biggest positional need really for them right now, like I said, is defense. Need a big defenseman, a big name defenseman. And there's been moves around the league for defensemen. Graham Sword last night going to Winnipeg for 4 draft picks and an 04 player. So hope to see the Rockets in that market for a defenseman some point in this season, because they have the goaltending and they have the goal scoring. It's just they need some help back there defensively.
Yeah. And like looking at defensemen throughout the WHL, there's definitely some big names that are making moves. I know in Everett, like there's Olin Zellweger, Aiden Sutter, who's also been on first line and second line a bunch. On the Winterhawks, those guys and everything. So like just definitely interesting to see who's been really consistent playing defense, and helping out their team and getting
absolutely
solid support. Awesome. Is there anything else that you guys want to cover before we go ahead and end this episode today?
The Rockets won in Portland for the first time in 6 years on Friday night, which was nice.
6 years?
Heck yeah.
6 years,
Wow.
8 straight losses to Portland. So as a Rocket fan, I was glad to see that. But really, it's, for Kelowna, they're not out of it. They have a very good team. Haven't had Colton Dock much this year. It doesn't excuse anything, but leading scorer from last season, hope to see him play more and more throughout the year. He's had some injury problems, but, this is a Rocket team that's proven that they can win. They can keep in with any of these good teams. And like I was talking to a security guard actually at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum about this last night. It doesn't matter for Kelowna. All you got to do is get in the playoffs, really. We could play a team like Seattle, and we've shown that, we can play them well. We kept them 5-4 game. We were really with them the whole way. We got outshot for sure, but we kept ourselves in the game. So really for Kelowna, it's just a matter of keeping their heads up, keep working, get themselves into the playoffs, and then really anything can happen, because if they can keep it close with some of these good teams like Winnipeg, we should have at least forced overtime. Tied the game with 30 seconds left. 7 seconds later, Winnipeg goes down and wins again. But when you can keep yourself in with top teams in, not only the Western League but the CHL, it shows that you're a good group, and a lot of really good efforts by the Rockets this season. Just like to see the results. Like Friday night, that was a Nolan Flaman tying the game with 5 seconds left, and then Andrew Crystal finishing it off in overtime. That's a big win for this Rocket team to get their confidence back going. And I think as a group, and even in the media, people are starting to notice that they've kept it in with good teams this year, which is important because they're the 8th seed in the Western Conference right now. But when you look at actual play, they aren't really an 8th seed. They're playing better hockey than what's being shown. They just got to learn how to win and get together as a group and start getting the results they need. Yeah,
putting up those numbers. Yeah. What about you, Brian? Any closing remarks further about the Winterhawks?
Yeah, I will say that I am excited for this Friday night, first Portland-Seattle matchup of the year. I will be there. I am two juggernaut teams so far, 2 teams that don't like each other. Should be a really fun time. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to watch. I'm gonna be covering the Prince George game when they come to play Seattle, and of course with Prince George breaking Seattle's winning streak. It's going to be definitely excited to see if they can do it again, or if Seattle will get back on track for the next 2 games that they have, or I think the next game that they have against them. So very excited to see it.
One more thing. This will be Portland's first big test of the year. Although they started off hot, they played Medicine Hat, Spokane, Edmonton, Tri-City.
Yeah, Tri-City.
Tri-City's better this year, but they're still a young group.
Of course.
But this is going to be Portland's first real test. They beat Kamloops the first game of the year, but Kamloops without plethora of people to NHL camps. They did beat them a couple weeks ago, but they fell down pretty far in that game. So this will be a big test for Portland going up against a team like the Seattle Thunderbirds, where they're loaded with NHL talent. It's a good rivalry. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Portland fares against a top team in the Western Hockey League, because so far it's not been super hard for them. They've played Edmonton, who's been the worst team in the league. Like I said, Medicine Hat, Tri-City, Spokane. So getting a real test for them will really show where they're at as a group, and I look forward to that game on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a good litmus test. See what the team, see how good the team is, where they can really improve going forward. Should definitely be fun. We'll see. See what happens.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to me with
that. Yeah,
for sure.
Really appreciated it. You can catch Matt and Bryan on Twitter. I'll make sure that I have their profiles linked at the end of this episode, so that way you can give them a follow. Check out for more WHL, Winterhawks, and Rockets content. So thank you guys again for showing up today. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the 7th episode of the WHL show this week. And thank you again to Bryan and Matt for coming on to chat about their respective teams with me. You can go ahead and find Bryan and Matt on Twitter. I put their usernames up on the screen for you. And my username will be at the bottom as well. Make sure to tune in next week, same time, 7 p.m. on Tuesday, to see some more WHL content from yours truly. Thank you so much again.